This is New Horizon, a rotating megastructure carrying 3 million ordinary humans across interstellar space. Inside are forests, oceans, cities, farms, artificial gravity, even weather. For 500 years, 20 generations have lived and died here while New Horizon crossed the darkness between stars. And now, the journey is finally over. Because just 10,000 miles beyond the viewing deck hangs something no living citizen has ever touched. A planet, blue oceans, green continents, a breathable-looking atmosphere. The world their ancestors built New Horizon to reach. After 5 centuries, humanity has arrived. But nobody is leaving. The landing pods remain sealed. The departure bays are guarded. And attempting to take a spacecraft to the planet is punishable by death. 3 million people can stand at a window and see the world their ancestors sacrificed everything to reach. But they are forbidden from touching it. Why? Because sometime during the 500-year voyage, something happened that the original builders never planned for. Humanity reached its destination, but the humans who arrived were no longer the humans who left. Meet Leo Vance. Leo isn't a soldier, scientist, or revolutionary. He's a maintenance pilot. For 12 years, he has flown small repair craft around New Horizon's exterior, welding damaged panels and patching holes punched through the hull by micrometeorites. But every time Leo untethers from the ring, he sees it. The planet, growing larger outside his cockpit. He was taught that leaving New Horizon would kill him. Everyone was. But Leo doesn't believe it. And for 3 years, he has been secretly downloading restricted navigation data into his shuttle computer. Tonight, he's going to find out for himself. Leo thinks the government has imprisoned 3 million people inside New Horizon. What he doesn't know is that the locks may not be keeping humanity in. They may be keeping the planet out. And the first reason begins with something Leo has experienced every second since he was born. Gravity. New Horizon doesn't actually have gravity. It manufactures the sensation of it. The enormous ring rotates, and its inhabitants are pressed against the inside of the outer rim. Walk through one of its parks, and you feel weight beneath your feet. Drop a glass, and it falls. Jump and you come back down. To a child born here, this is simply how the universe works. But it isn't planetary gravity. And there is a clue. Drop an object while standing inside a rotating habitat, and, depending on the habitat size and rotation rate, its path can appear to curve relative to the floor. Run in certain directions, and you can feel strangely heavier or lighter. Move toward the rotational axis, and your body encounters unfamiliar motion. These are consequences of living inside a rotating reference frame, including the Coriolis effect. Engineers therefore face an enormous design problem. Spin a habitat too quickly and human balance systems can become confused, producing disorientation and motion sickness. Build the ring larger and rotate it more slowly, and those effects become easier to tolerate. New Horizon was engineered around that compromise. But Leo's people have gone much further than tolerating it. They have spent their entire lives adapting to it, and generation after generation has never known anything else. Exactly how far human development, and eventually evolution, would adapt over 5 centuries is uncertain. But Leo is about to discover something simpler. His body has been trained by one environment from birth, and he is about to replace that environment in minutes. Leo enters his maintenance shuttle. He closes the hatch, disconnects the safety tether, then enters the stolen navigation code. A warning appears. Unauthorized trajectory. He ignores it. The clamps release. For the first time in his life, Leo watches New Horizon move away from him. Then his stomach rises into his throat. Weight disappears. Tools float from their compartments. His arms drift upward. For Leo, it feels exhilarating. Freedom. Then he vomits. His eyes tell him the cabin is stationary. His inner ear tells him something completely different. His brain desperately tries to reconcile the two. And this is only the beginning. Because New Horizon's rotating gravity hides another problem. Gravity inside a rotating habitat changes with distance from its axis. Near the inhabited outer rim, designers can create something close to Earth normal apparent gravity. Move inward toward the hub, and that apparent gravity falls. At the rotational axis, it approaches zero. And Leo has spent years working in those lower gravity maintenance zones. That matters because human bone is not permanent architecture. It is living tissue. Remove mechanical loading for long enough, and the body begins breaking bone down faster than it rebuilds it. Astronauts in microgravity already experience measurable bone loss. Muscles weaken. Cardiovascular conditioning changes. Returning to full gravity requires rehabilitation. Now imagine designing a civilization where some people repeatedly work between near-Earth gravity and much lower gravity environments. Then stretch that civilization across centuries. Leo doesn't need to have evolved paper-thin bones for the danger to be real. Years of occupational exposure could already make planetary gravity far harder on him than he expects. And the planet below doesn't care what his body expects. Its gravity doesn't switch off when his shift ends. Alarms explode across New Horizon. Security has detected the stolen shuttle. 2 interceptors launch. Leo sees them approaching on radar. He fires the main engine. Acceleration slams him backward. His chest tightens. His vision narrows. But the planet grows larger. The interceptors order him to abort. Leo refuses. He dives toward the atmosphere. And now the government finally sends him the message nobody outside the Central Archives is supposed to see. Not, return or you will be executed. Something worse. Surface exposure probability of survival, unknown. Leo stares at it. Unknown. For his entire life, the government claimed the planet would kill him. But if they don't actually know, why has nobody been allowed to try? Because gravity was never the greatest danger. The greatest danger is alive. For 500 years, New Horizon has been a closed biological world. Every liter of water is recycled. Every crop is monitored. Air moves through controlled filtration systems. Pathogens entering critical habitats can be identified, isolated, and suppressed. But the habitat cannot literally be sterile. Humans themselves carry vast microbial communities on their skin, in their mouths, and throughout their digestive systems. Plants require microorganisms. So do functioning ecosystems. New Horizons inhabitants still have immune systems. They still encounter bacteria, fungi, and viruses. But after centuries of isolation, the microbial world inside New Horizon and whatever exists on the planet below would have developed independently. And that's where the real biological gamble begins. Because a habitable-looking alien world does not automatically mean a biologically compatible one. Its organisms might use chemistry completely unlike ours. Its microbes might be unable to infect humans at all. Or interaction between the 2 biospheres could produce consequences nobody predicted. Toxic compounds, allergic reactions, ecological collapse, dangerous Earth microbes escaping from New Horizon and destroying alien ecosystems. The frightening truth isn't that alien bacteria would definitely kill Leo. It's that after 500 years of travel, nobody can guarantee what happens when 2 isolated biospheres finally touch. And there is no laboratory large enough to test an entire planet. That is why the doors stayed closed. Not because the government knew the planet was lethal, because it didn't know that it wasn't. Leo reaches the upper atmosphere. The shuttle begins to shake. A thin glow forms around the hull. Then the glow becomes fire. Every alarm in the cockpit activates at once. Leo can still turn around. He looks back. New Horizon is now a tiny silver ring against the stars. Everything humanity has known for 5 centuries is inside it. Every hospital, every farm, every school, every person he has ever loved. Then he looks forward. Clouds, oceans, continents, a real horizon. Leo disables the autopilot and continues downward. Suppose he survives. Suppose the atmosphere contains enough oxygen. Suppose the pressure is tolerable. Suppose the planet's gravity is close enough to Earth's. Suppose its biology doesn't poison him. Leo still faces a problem no engineer can solve with a stronger engine. He doesn't belong here. Not culturally, not psychologically. Perhaps, given enough generations and enough reproductive isolation, not even biologically. Because this is the hidden paradox of generation ships. We imagine them as enormous vehicles. Build one, put humans inside, travel for centuries, reach another world, get out, mission accomplished. But after hundreds of years, the ship is no longer transportation. It is home. Children are born who have never seen a planet. Their children grow up beneath the same manufactured sky. Languages drift. Traditions change. Political systems evolve. Bodies develop within the habitat's particular gravity, diet, atmosphere, and day-night cycle. The destination becomes something stranger with every generation. Eventually, asking those people to abandon the ship may be equivalent to asking us to abandon Earth. And if reproductive isolation continued long enough, genuine genetic divergence could eventually follow. Not because technology magically creates a new human species, but because isolated populations change. The extraordinary possibility is that a generation ship could succeed perfectly at keeping humanity alive, while slowly destroying the original reason for the journey. Leo's shuttle punches through the clouds. For the first time, he sees the surface without glass between them. Mountains stretch toward the horizon. An ocean reflects the alien sun. The computer identifies a flat coastline. Leo lands. The engines shut down. Silence. He sits there for several seconds, then reaches for his helmet. New Horizon orders him not to open the hatch. Leo disconnects communications. He releases the seal. Hisses. Outside air enters the cabin. Sensors begin analyzing it. Pressure, survivable. Temperature, survivable. Oxygen concentration, within tolerance. No immediate toxins detected. Leo laughs. The government was wrong. He removes his helmet. For the first time in 5 centuries, a human breathes air that didn't come from a machine. Leo steps outside. His legs tremble beneath the unfamiliar load. His balance system fights to understand a world that isn't rotating beneath him. He falls to one knee, but he gets back up. Then something happens that nobody on New Horizon expected. Nothing. No instant infection. No collapsing lungs. No mysterious alien disease. Just wind. Real wind. Leo walks toward the water. And that may be more dangerous to New Horizon than if he had died. Because now 3 million people have a question the government can no longer suppress. What if we can leave? The leadership faces an impossible decision. Open the gates immediately, and millions could rush toward a biosphere nobody fully understands. Keep them closed, and New Horizon becomes a prison whose justification is collapsing in real time. Send controlled expeditions, and perhaps adaptation begins. Medical screening, quarantine, progressive gravity conditioning, protective habitats on the surface, years of ecological study before unrestricted contact. The problem was never that landing was physically impossible. The problem was that after 500 years, landing had become more dangerous than the original architects imagined. And New Horizon had built an entire civilization around avoiding that risk. The ship succeeded too well. Months later, Leo stands on the same beach. Behind him is the first sealed surface habitat. Above him, New Horizon crosses the night sky like a moving star. Most of its 3 million citizens are still inside. Some will eventually come down. Some never will. Children born on the planet will grow up under natural gravity. Children born on New Horizon will continue running beneath an artificial sky. Given enough time, those two populations may stop thinking of themselves as members of the same civilization. And perhaps, much further into the future, biology could follow culture. That is the real generation ship paradox. The greatest danger of spending centuries traveling to another world isn't simply that the engines fail, or that the food runs out, or that we never reach our destination. It's that the machine we build to preserve human civilization becomes so successful that it creates another one. New Horizon was built to carry humanity to a new home. 500 years later, humanity finally arrived. But somewhere between the stars, the ship became home instead.